Days later, Marius returned with others, telling Jan they'd found a way to get him out. They placed him on a sled and dragged him across the snow. Suddenly, a German aircraft appeared overhead, forcing them to hide Jan under a large rock. Marius told him, "People will come soon to take you across the border to Sweden. Just wait here." Then they left. Days passed. No one came. Snow piled up and temperatures dropped. Jan began losing hope. Meanwhile, Marius and Gudrun worried he hadn't reached the border. Then, a man who was supposed to guide Jan confessed, "I couldn't find him. Maybe I hid him under the wrong rock." Terrified, they rushed back to the mountain. When they found Jan, he was completely covered in snow, barely alive. They dug him out, gave him soup, and told him to hold on a little longer. Help was coming. Soon, rescuers arrived, carried Jan on a sled, and began the final journey toward Sweden. But he was extremely weak, and as night fell, fierce winds struck. He lost consciousness. When he awoke, he was in a cave with his rescuers. Their leader said the border was too heavily guarded, but they'd find a way soon. Days passed. Jan grew sicker, his infection spreading. Finally, the doctor amputated his infected foot to save his life. After recovery, they prepared to cross the border again. They hid Jan's sled among hundreds of reindeer and released them toward Sweden. The herd was so large the German guards didn't notice the hidden sled. But suddenly, the sled's rope broke, flipping it over and injuring Jan badly. German soldiers spotted him and fired. Jan crawled behind rocks, determined not to be captured. As they aimed again, Jan raised his gun, ready to shoot himself rather than be taken. Then, a miracle happened. The reindeer that had been pulling his sled returned, tied itself again, and dashed toward the border. Bullets flew, but not one hit Jan. He crossed into Sweden, finally free. When German soldiers reported that the 12th man had escaped, Kurt was stunned. It was the first time any prisoner had ever escaped him. 3 months later, Jan had mostly recovered, though he had lost all his toes. He handed over the important intelligence documents he had carried all along. He became a national hero, the man who outwitted the Nazis and survived the impossible. By 1945, the war ended. In 1947, Officer Kurt was executed. Marius married and had 5 children. Gudrun lived happily with her boyfriend. Jan received Norway's highest honor, the War Cross with Sword, along with several other awards, but he credited all those who helped him, including the reindeer that carried him to freedom. Norway was finally free. Jan lived the rest of his life peacefully and passed away in 1988. And that's how this true story, the story of the 12th man, ends. See you in the next video. Until then, goodbye.